Hey y'all, in this video, I'm going to show you an example on how to solve by completing the square. In this particular example, we find that we cannot factor the quadratic and it's going to have imaginary solutions. So I'm going to cover a lot of really cool stuff in this video. So if we were to take a quick glance at this example, and graph it, we find that it does not cross the x-axis. So that means that when we get our solutions, they're going to be imaginary. So that indicates that this is not going to be factorable, which means we're going to complete the square. So to complete the square, I showed you a shortcut in a previous video where we find the vertex first. And just to kind of review that, the vertex, we called it h comma k. It's an x and y value, but we called it h and k just to kind of keep everything straight. And to find h, we do negative b over 2a, which comes from the coefficients in the quadratic that we were given. And then the k value is where we plug in h, whatever we get for h. So I want you to pause it, find those two values, come back and check your work. So you should get positive 1/4 for your h value. And then for your k value, when you plug in 1/4, we're going to go ahead and leave it in fraction form because when we go down further and try to solve this by hand, those fractions are actually going to turn out really nice and end up helping us. I know a lot of students really hate fractions, but I promise, just stick with me. It turns out. So I don't have to do this by hand. You don't have to do this by hand. So I'm going to go over here, get back to my home screen. Whoops. And I'm going to type that in. 2 times 1/4 squared minus 1/4 plus 6. And notice that I put the fraction in parentheses to show my calculator that this is a fraction. If you have a fraction template, then you can use that, but I'm old school. I do it with parentheses. So it gives me a decimal answer, which is fine. It's the same number, but I really want it in fraction form. So I'm going to go to math. It's the top option here, fraction, enter. And that's going to give it to me in fraction form, which is really what I'm looking for. So we get 47/8. So now since I have my h and k value, then I can put it in vertex form, and that's going to help me complete the square. To put it in vertex form, we have to know vertex form, which we do. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And remember here, we're plugging in a, h, and k. Y and x, just stay y and x because we need those variables for graphing type of thing or solving. The a value is from the original equation, which was 2. X stays, minus stays. The h value was 1/4. Parentheses squared stays. And then the k value is 47/8. So if the goal of the problem was to complete the square, then I'm done. That's it. But we're actually trying to solve. We're finding the x-intercepts. So I'm going to go a little bit further and I'm going to try to solve this. I'm not going to try. I am going to solve this. So remember from x-intercepts, what do you know about x-intercepts? What's the only thing you know about x-intercepts? The y value has to be 0. So that means I'm plugging in 0 for y and solving for x. So I've got a lot of room here because it's going to get a little messy, but it turns out, I promise. Remember when you're solving for x, this is, you can use the square root property for this one. So that means that you're going to have to isolate x. Now x is inside of parentheses, inside the squared, with the number outside. So that means we're going to have to do some undoing here. We're going to have to move 47/8 first, then the 2, then the square, and we'll go on. So I want you to pause it and try it and come back and kind of check. I'll go like halfway so we can talk about it. Okay, so far I have moved 47 over 8, and that becomes negative 47 over 8, and I divided by that coefficient of 2, and if you get tripped up with fractions, you can type that in, okay? You don't have to do that by hand, but if you were going to do it in your head, you flip that 2, make it a half, multiply, and we get negative 47 over 16 equals x minus a fourth all squared. So that x is still inside the parentheses. How can I get it outside of the parentheses? What's the opposite of squaring? We take the square root. So that's going to be my next step. Change colors again. Square root. Oh, I made that ugly. Square root. Don't forget your plus or minus because we have two options there. Plus or minus square root negative 47 over 16 equals x minus a fourth. So I'm almost done because I've got that x out of the parentheses, and now I just need to isolate it further. I'm still going to run out of room, even with all this space I gave myself. I'm going to go up here. Sorry about that. All I have to do now is add a fourth. So I've got positive 1/4 plus or minus square root negative 47 over square root 16. I kind of jumped a step here, so I'm going to erase that and rewrite it for you. Negative 47 over 16 equals x. Okay, so here is where I think maybe where students usually get mixed up. I don't think it's necessarily the process until this point. It's kind of like, okay, now what do I do with this mess here? I've got a negative under the square root and a fraction. Ugh, is usually what students say, but it's not so bad, I promise. We can break this up into manageable bite-sized pieces. Square root negative 47 over square root 16 using our square root properties. And then we know that when there's a negative under the square root, to simplify that, we pull out an I. 47 is prime. That's ugly. So that's not going to simplify any further. And square root 16 is 4. I promised you this would turn out. Look now, we got all these ugly fractions. It was ugly here, but it turned out to where now we have the same denominator. And we can just join these into one answer or keep it as, it is one answer, but join it under one fraction or keep it as separate fractions. So you can write this as, 1/4 plus or minus I root 47 over 4, or you can write it as one fraction. Where did I get -1? I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did that. 1 plus or minus I root 47 all over 4. Or you can write it as two answers. 1 minus I root 47 over 4. 1 plus I root 47 over 4. So we did get two answers. They are imaginary. And we did have to simplify them. They are irrational. So this one was really special because we had a lot of different stuff going on here. So that's why I kind of wanted to cover this example, because I always have a lot of questions about this kind of stuff. I'm really sorry it got messy there. Hopefully you were able to track. If you have any questions about the process, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you. One other thing I want to point out here, I've run out of room, but I'm going to go over here with some white paper. We were lucky this time because we got -47. 47 was prime, so we didn't have to simplify much. Let's pretend like we had gotten -48 instead. We still pull out that I, but 48 is not prime. 48 can break up into 16 times 3, square root of 16, square root of 3. Square root of 16 is 4. So we would get 4I root 3. So that's another situation where you might get tripped up. And then if it has a denominator of 4, I'm just going to simplify a little bit. Those 4s divide. So you might come across something like that. If you want to write that down in your notes so that you have an example of that, please feel free to do that. But that is all I have for this example. I hope it helped. If you have any further questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you out, and I will see you in the next one.